Welcome, everyone. I see people are still joining and coming through the waiting room. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Ann Erkowich, Member Engagement Manager at Save the Sound, and I'm so glad that you guys all joined us to find out more about our priorities for the 2026 legislative session, and what we're doing and working on to protect natural resources and advocate for environmental justice. I'm going to hand it over to our Director of Connecticut Government Relations, Charles Rothenberger.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Let's dive right into it, talking a little bit about the 2026 session. Despite the title of this slide, we are in 2026, not 2020. 2020 was also a short session, but the calendar information here is correct for 2026. Um, we started the session just a couple of weeks ago on February 4th, and we are already racing towards adjournment on May 6th. It's a few months, but when you really break it down, it's a very short 13-week session, which gives us, with weekends and holidays, just 64 business days to do our work. And that means that the deadlines for the various committees are very, very quick and very short. You can see several of the more relevant committees for the work that we do on this slide as well: transportation, energy and technology, environment, and the two money committees: finance, revenue, and bonding, and appropriations. So the first deadlines that you see there, the February deadlines, are the deadlines for committees to raise their bills. And committees have been having meetings over the last couple of weeks to raise uh, concept bills. So if you look at the agendas, you'll see broad titles, which sometimes it's very difficult to glean what might be in those bills just from the title alone, although it gives you perhaps a hint. Um, Typically, those bills, those concepts are raised just on voice votes. They then go to nonpartisan staff at the Capitol. They get drafted into the formal statutory language that you typically see, and then they'll be scheduled for a public hearing. And those public hearings have just gotten started this week. We are looking forward on Friday to the first public hearing in the Environment Committee. And you'll see in the next few slides a couple bills of particular interest on that agenda. But as we go through the next few weeks in public hearings, all of the committees are really looking towards a late March, early April deadline to vote bills out of committee. So the bills get raised, they get put on a public hearing agenda. You probably get an email from us reaching out and telling you what's coming up, and what you should be focused on in terms of testifying before a committee. And then we wait and see and continue having conversations with legislators, trying to ensure that the bills that ultimately get voted out of the committee are the best that they can be. And you can see here we'll just talk to energy and technology and environment. So all the bills have to be voted out by either the 24th or the 25th of March, a little bit earlier for transportation, and a little bit later for the money committees because they just have a much larger volume of work, and budget negotiations are just always quite quite fraught. So we are in the thick of it right now, as we look to some of the public hearings. Some of the bills that we're watching, uh, and this will be a little bit vague in some places because bills are still being drafted and still being raised. It's a little bit of the chaos of the session right now. But we do know HB 5156, which is the Climate Change Superfund bill, will be on the Environment Committee public hearing this Friday. This would establish a Superfund cost recovery program to fund adaptive infrastructure projects to help address the impacts of climate change. Because of some legal technicalities, trying to design this in the best way possible to survive potential challenges. It covers previous emissions, not prospective emissions. So it would look to emissions between the years of 1995 and 2024, and establish a strict liability standard for fossil fuel companies for those emissions, to help pay for some of the costs that certainly we here in Connecticut are experiencing from the impacts of climate change, whether that is flooding, fires, etc. The electric sector, we also have a couple bills that we've seen some language for. The first one, HB 5036, is actually one of the governor's bills, and that would provide for an automated permitting process for residential solar applications. So you wouldn't have to go to your local building official. It would be a complete online system that would expedite that process on both sides of the equation, trying to ensure that we maintain our steady progress on the deployment of clean renewable energy despite what is happening at the federal level. And we also have a perennial bill. It seems to come back every year. SB 144, an providing for local representation on the Connecticut Siting Council. This would provide for a municipal elected official to sit with the Siting Council on projects that are proposed for that elected official's community, municipality. They would be a non-voting member for these purposes. So it seems like the only real addition there would be to allow them to participate in deliberation. But folks should be aware that the Connecticut Siting Council does have a public participation process. So difficult to see the value add of that particular bill, really. But it does come back every year. We also know there's likely to be a number of topics that are currently in the drafting stage. PURA, the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, just in December released its final report. Oh, actually, final report is coming up. The draft report was released back in December. Not expecting too many changes, but providing recommendations to the legislature for the next generation of the state solar programs. And those include the residential solar program, as well as the commercial and shared solar program. So anticipate there may be some legislation to incorporate those into statute. We know that folks are looking to improve our energy efficiency and transmission planning processes here in the state. Data centers, something that all states are wrestling with, and again, is a perennial issue here in Connecticut as we figure out the best way to manage the environmental impacts of those data centers, as well as the huge energy demand that they bring. Energy affordability has clearly been a key in the last couple of sessions. There's been a lot of focus on the public benefits charge on folks' electricity bills. I think we will see some activity around the information that's provided on electricity bills, a way to break out the various charges in even greater granularity and provide more transparency, so folks really know exactly what it is that they're paying for. You know, many of these charges could end up in various line items. You know, if you're reducing the charge for our energy efficiency programs, which are really extremely modest, 0.6 of a cent per kilowatt hour. If we're not making those investments, then we're purchasing more electricity from the grid, and that's going to show up in the supply charge. So we want to make sure that legislators and the public really understand the value that various ratepayer funded programs provide, but also the impact and the consequences that would occur if those charges were eliminated entirely without a really thoughtful look at those impacts. Um, Likely be some activity around third-party electricity suppliers, as well as legislators taking another look at municipal electric aggregation programs, which basically allow municipalities to procure wholesale electricity for their residents on the wholesale markets. But again, these are all bills that we are still awaiting language for. So we'll be keeping our eyes open, and we'll likely be hitting a public hearing, maybe even sometime next week. One other issue, which is not strictly legislative, is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI. This is a multi-state climate reduction program that Connecticut is in with 10 other states, all the other New England states, as well as several mid-Atlantic states. Um, it has to be updated on occasion. The third program review concluded a while ago, and states are now in the process of updating their regulations to maintain symmetry and to ensure continued participation in the program. Uh, Deep is in charge of crafting those regulations as they sit as a member of the multi-state RGGI board, and they're facing a January 2027 deadline for that work. So this will go before the Regulations Review Committee. So that's the legislative piece there. We anticipate conversations around energy affordability will be also surround the RGGI discussions, but this is a program that has been wildly successful. It's reduced greenhouse gas emissions from the electricity sector by nearly 50%. It's one of the real success stories, and helps to support energy efficiency and clean energy programs in the participating states. So by any measure, there's a real value add here for ratepayers across the board. So we're looking forward to those revisions. In transportation, we're likely going to see some legislation around electric vehicle rebates, and providing for additional infrastructure throughout the state, um, moving some freight services off of our roads, and taking greater advantage of rail services. And then SB 237, which just came out today, looks at expanded service on Shoreline East, as well as some other expanded transit services around the state. So some of these bills are starting to pop. We're starting to see some language, as you can see in the bulleted points. Still a lot of concepts out there, but continue to have conversations with folks, and look forward to seeing them hit agendas. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Bill to talk about some of the other priorities that he is shepherding through the session.
Thanks, Charles. Um, the first one, vegetated riparian buffers, that concept was raised on the first day of the environmental committee meeting. That is a product of a bill that was passed last year forming a working group. We had a very large working group that Charles and I attended, and it was a fairly broad swath of interested stakeholders. We had, I think it was somewhere close to 30 different recommendations, and we voted on them all. A little over half were consensus based. The majority of them passed. on roll call votes. Um, Not everything though. So right now what's going on is there's a final report of those recommendations that's being submitted. And from that, there will be language that is written up by LCO, and that's what we're going to see. We don't have that language yet to comment on, but the three big takeaways from our perspective at Save the Sound is one, 10-foot regulated area along the water courses of Connecticut. And what that would mean is if you want to mow right down to the edge of a stream or a lake, you have to get a permit. So if you have a path that goes to a bridge crossing a stream or you have a driveway, you can still do those things, but it just has to go in front of inland wetlands and it has to be reviewed. Right now, you can do whatever you want. There are no protections. We're the only state in New England that doesn't have specific protections, though some towns have used their existing authority to go ahead and do that. Um, so that's a big one. And the reason we want those buffers is because it allows wildlife migration corridors along all of our streams and lake shores. So, say a mink can travel undercover for miles if we enact this. It also drops bugs into the water, which feed the fish. It provides nesting areas. There are certain species that rely specifically on riparian vegetation for their ecology. It cools the rivers down. It creates shade. As we know, we've got really hot winters and drought occurring, and so that really creates some good refuge. Um, and it also filters out all the dog feces and plastic and all the stuff that runs off of our lawns or fields that isn't buffered and our roadways, though it's a little bit different with the stormwater system, but it acts as a filter and it's there already. So why wouldn't we protect it and try and expand it? Um, the other big takeaway is a call out for cold water and drinking water streams. So those will have to be addressed by the person asking for a permit to work in this area. That's very important because we've lost 75%, probably more now, of our native brook trout due to climate change. They need those cold water refuges to hang on. And then a really big policy change, which we hope goes through, is putting the burden of proof on the applicant. So if a developer wants to come in and encroach in a riparian area, they have to prove that it will not cause any harm. Right now, it's set up where a volunteer group of wetland commissioners have to tell an applicant why their proposed action could cause harm. And this is cumulative effect stuff. This is death by a thousand paper cuts. So we always felt that that was an unfair burden on the towns to come up with that proof. So this would flip that around. And if you want to develop something, you have to show the town why it's not going to be a problem. The dams and safe fish passage, that's a very narrow select group of dams that are not regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And we have some fish passage that doesn't function. And it should. They should be held to standards. If they were FERC regulated, they would be held to fish passage standards that are customized for each dam. That still has not been raised, but we're getting very close. We're in negotiations with Deep to come up with some compromise language that they will accept and we can move on. So stay tuned on that. And then sewage right to know. This is a perennial improvement bill we have for years. I think we've Save the Sounds introduced the original bill and then updated it twice to make it stronger and more accessible to the public. And the last portion that we really need is electronic notification through email or through your phone. So if there's a big sewage spill and you choose to be one of the people that can get alerted to that spill, like we have in New York, like they have in Massachusetts, you will be able to do so. Now, the good news is Deep has found a way to do this through the 211 system. They're working on it. They tell us it will be completed by December of this year. just to ensure that that continues and to provide Deep some extra resources outside of the regular budgeting process. We would like to put some money towards that effort to ensure that it gets done by the deadline that they think they can do it. So that'll be something that hopefully next year we're going to do a big advertising campaign where you could sign up for this. Um, and you can get it beamed right into your phone. So don't take your dog down to the pond for swimming, or don't go fishing in the river. Don't go kayaking when there's a known sewage outfall happening. One component of that, though, which we still have yet to figure out, is when there is sewage coming from out of state. So our system is designed to tell you what's going on in state, so that's to be determined. I know there was a lot of newspaper coverage of the Springfield plant releasing sewage, which it's been doing for years, and Save the Sound has intervened in that in the past, and they have really been working very hard to get their act together. But that regardless, people want to know if they're swimming in sewage or fishing in sewage. So that's in positive direction. So those are the three main bills I'm looking at. There's a number of other ones that we join on, but I will leave it at that for now. And I will pass it off to Alex to discuss his environmental justice bills.
Thank you, Bill. Um, Save the Sound has been a long advocate for clean transportation initiatives, and within those clean transportation initiatives, environmental justice, the theme of building the capacity of our communities to access clean transportation alternatives to what is primarily a diesel-fueled fleet system has been hot on our minds as we push uh, we push the state to electrify as a way to reduce carbon pollution from our largest sources of emissions, the transportation sector. One bill one initiative that we supported last session that has been revived uh, is this effort for reduced transit fares. And so last session, partnering with a coalition of high school students, primarily from the Stamford and New Haven areas, and Hartford areas, Save the Sound advocated for SB 1243, a bill that would have provided free or reduced public bus passes to students and veterans. The reduced fare focus of this legislation was included in a different bill, SB 1377, requiring the DOT commissioner to provide up to a 50% fare discount for veterans and riders under 18. However, last session there was no funding coupled to support that program. And so the governor has graciously revisited that program this coming session. In this session, in his budget address, the governor announced that he would include uh, funding to support this program, specifically $3.5 million to support the mobility of veterans and high school students in particular. Uh, and that is included in the bullet you see above, SB 237, and that concerning public transportation. In this legislation, veterans would be allowed to ride the bus for free, and students would receive reduced fares, half off bus fares. And this is particularly important to support affordability support access, while also reducing reducing our reliance on single occupancy vehicles. And so we appreciate the governor for revisiting this initiative. The next bill I want to touch on, the next bullet that I want to touch on regarding increased resources for electric school buses. This concept is being included in a bill that will be heard in the Environment Committee this Friday, and that is included in HB 5153. And concerning increased resources for electric buses, this would allow the commissioner of the DEEP to establish and administer a grant program for providing a portion of the matching funds necessary for municipalities, school districts, and school bus providers to submit federal grant applications in order to maximize federal or other funding or financing opportunities for the purpose for the purchase or lease of zero emission school buses and electric charging or fueling infrastructure. And this is particularly important as the state really finds itself, or school districts and their school bus providers find themselves in a particular bind for resources to help meet the goals of Connecticut's Clean Air Act. And that's a policy Save the Sound and many of our allies had supported 4 years ago to support complete electrification of our public buses by 2040. And thinking about that, and thinking about our current federal administration and how they have been very much on the offensive towards clean transportation initiatives and wanting school districts to maintain the status quo with regard to primarily diesel buses and propane buses. It's important that the state establish this matching program to help these electric bus targets become more attainable, help students obtain a clean ride going to school and coming home from school, and thereby reducing carbon emissions from the transportation sector and supporting a healthier climate and healthier livelihoods for our communities. The next bullet I want to touch on is regarding EJ education funding. That is an initiative that many environmental justice leaders in Connecticut that we have been consulting with have supported. To touch on my earlier comments on how aggressive the federal administration, the Trump administration, has been towards clean transportation initiatives, they have equally been aggressive towards the concept of environmental justice and erased millions of dollars in grant funding opportunities that would have supported the capacity of community-based organizations and nonprofits to continue their environmental justice education work. And so this EJ education funding ask is something that one of our partners, Dr. Mark Mitchell, is consulting with Yukon Circa and other state elected officials on to boost the capacity of a grant program called the Circa Yukon Circa Climate and Equity Grant Fund. They are working to turn this into a annual grant opportunity to support programs led by CBOs, community-based organizations concerning clean air monitoring, multimodal transit education, and a variety of other things. I will say that this EJ education funding ask is not yet confirmed for bill language. This is something that we are planning to meet with the chair of appropriations on Monday. And we will keep you updated on how that develops. And the last concept here regarding increased funding to remove barriers to weatherization and support energy efficiency in environmental justice communities. To my knowledge, this has not received a bill number as of yet either. Energy efficiency contractors such as Efficiency for All, have been in contact with the Energy and Technology Committee to support this particular ask. And to my knowledge, they have not yet moved forward. But, rest assured on the clean transportation priorities that we have mentioned here, we will certainly be in touch with you all over the course of the session and ask for your support for these particular bills, particularly the HB 5153 legislation being heard in the Environment Committee this Friday. So thank you very much, and I will pass it over to Charles.
Thanks, Alex. That was great, and Bill as well. And I think that's what we needed to cover. I don't know, Anne or Amanda, if we were going to open it up for questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Charles, Bill, and Alex, for reviewing the legislative priorities for 2026. Uh, does anyone here have questions? Uh, Go ahead and unmute yourselves, or if you put something in the chat, I'll monitor that, and I'm happy to read your questions. Go ahead. Was someone trying to talk? It sounded like. I thought I heard someone trying to unmute themselves. I don't see any questions in the chat yet.
Well, not surprising. A lot of this was pretty high level and conceptual. So I'm sure as language starts being released and gets sent around, there's more opportunities to dig into the details where the devil always is. Excuse me. I would just add, with it being a short session, and an election year for the governor, as well as for every sitting member of the House and Senate. There's going to be a lot of discussion around the energy affordability issue for sure. With all of your support, we were very successful in defeating a really robust attempt to if not eliminate, to really cripple our energy efficiency and clean energy programs last year. We are going to need that same level of commitment and effort from everybody this year again, and know that we can certainly count on you, but we will be keeping you apprised as bills hit the public hearing agendas and provide you with opportunities to lend your voice and your perspective to the policy debates happening at the Capitol.
Thanks, Charles. And actually, we do have a couple questions. Um, One of our members and volunteers, Mary Stevens, has asked, Bill, what are the chances permits will be allowed where there should be riparian buffers? I think that's probably a tough one.
Yeah, we have 169 towns and they all do things differently. So that remains to be seen. And of course, existing practices are going to be grandfathered in. So I hope there will be common sense with this. I mean, if you have to get across a stream or you have a little beach on a lake, I think those will probably be pretty easy to permit. What we're really trying to do is to get people to start thinking about that riparian vegetation and voluntarily leave it alone. Or if you're mowing, stop mowing so close and let it grow back. There's also been discussion of some incentive programs to maybe hurry that along. There was initial discussion with the 490 program, where if you left areas to improve water quality, left wild areas, maybe there could be some incentive, some property tax incentive. But we didn't have enough stakeholders at the working group to tackle that. That's a big issue, and 490 has its own issues going on right now, but that could be coming in the future. There's another initiative that's being floated around, Lawns to Meadows, and there were some interesting funding strategies for that. So I think a mix of some regulatory, and 10 feet, don't get me, that's the bare minimum. I think that's less than anybody else. It helps somewhat, but you're better off. I'll put it this way, when I worked for the Forest Service, it was a standard to have 100 feet, and if you were in a riparian management area, it was 300 feet. Now, again, that's national forest, public land, but a lot of other states have similar setbacks. So I think we need to just get the idea normalized in Connecticut society, put a little bit of teeth behind it, and then hopefully we can use incentive and education to really expand on those protections. But I cannot foretell the decisions at all the inland wetland commissions, but that's a good question.
Thanks, Bill. And then Rafe, our member volunteer and board member, um, has asked, is there anything regarding solar incentives or incentives to upgrade old panels that are not as efficient as the new ones?
I have not heard anything about incentives specifically for replacement programs. Although you raise you raise a really good point. I know there is some legislation that's going to be drafted around the recycling of panels. So as I just am thinking about it now, there may be an opportunity to marry those concepts and provide some incentives, perhaps for upgrades and swap outs tied with some recycling of those panels, but not heard anything specific on that issue yet. But it's a really good point. Um, I mentioned the Pura report on the next generation of our solar programs, and one of the recommendations they did make was to provide more of an incentive for pairing residential solar with battery storage. Um, in Pura's recommendation, that will likely take the form of some reduced compensation for solar output. Right now, all the solar that you're not using at home and you're exporting to the grid gets compensated, or the homeowner gets compensated at the full retail rate. Pura recommended not a specific number, but finding a sweet spot somewhere between the wholesale rate and the retail rate, which would make time shifting of the home generation more attractive. So rather than exporting it to the grid where you may be getting less than that retail rate, if you paired it with battery storage, you could save it and then use it, or uh, use it at home when it's more valuable for your own purposes. So, but great point, Rafe, and I will remember to raise that with folks. I don't know who's in the chat, but I see that David Michelle has raised his hand. So, uh, David, good to see you.
Good to see you, Charles. Good to see you, familiar names and faces. Nice to see you, Bill. Thank you for your for sharing your priorities this year. Just a question that might be more for Alex, in terms of environmental justice. Just my curiosity. I know it's a short session. Just wondering if there still is a fight, or if there's going to be a fight this year, or not a fight, a push for um, a better environmental justice bill as was pushed back in like a few years back, year after year. But just wondering if that is still going on, or just waiting for a long session. Hey, Alex, nice to see you too.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for the question. On that, Deep is reconvening their public engagement and industry regulatory engagement, um, because with the 2023 law that was passed, I understand that there are three more regulatory workshops that they need to hold to gather the public's input on uh, what should be considered before the state is given the ability to deny permits based on cumulative impact.
Okay.
And so, those three regulatory workshops, I anticipate will be held probably late spring through December. Um, when will Deep develop the draft language? That could be any time between January and March of next year. And so I've been advised that by the environment co-chairs that uh, the regulations should be finalized before offering any any adjustment to the EJ law at this time. And so I'm going to heed that recommendation. But I understand that the EJ law has arose some controversy from uh, right-leaning members of the legislature, that uh, that we will certainly keep track of any efforts to kill the legislation, uh, kill the law before it has been finalized. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alex. Okay. Cool.
Okay, and with that, I'll thank you all for joining us today and add that having you as members really helps add weight to us when we're fighting for these various bills at the Capitol and trying to forward the green transportation and protecting natural resources and environmental justice. And so we really appreciate you being members of Save the Sound and helping us with this. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.